हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम्। हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत भावशुक्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः। ओहं भावयुत कुतो वरधिय दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Anma bodham. We have been relying on the Tamil translation of the original Atma Bodha by the Acharya Adi Shankarar. The translation is by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi. We have come to the 27th and 28th verses as a series of verses on Shravana, the portion where the Jnana Marga is delineated for us by the Guru, and we listen to it Guru Mukhena. Whenever we gather in satsang, whenever we sit for Atma Vicharam, Bhagavan is present. While describing the contents of the talks with Sri Ramana Maharishi, Chadwick later known as Sadhu Arunachala, Major Chadwick, in his foreword, he writes that while meditating, I am merely paraphrasing, I am not quoting exactly, while meditating on these talks, we are literally transported to the old hall with Bhagavan in his inimitable way describing to us how self alone is. So when we are meditating on this translation, we are literally transported to the old meditation hall, irrespective of where our bodies are, and we are listening, doing the Shravana part of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. The Shravana and the Manana we have to do to understand. We literally are hearing from Bhagavan in the old meditation hall. Or Bhagavan is present inside each one of us, as he is the omnipresent one, as the self, and as the Guru. He is revealing the importance of Atma bodham. We are in 27th verse, which goes like this. Tannaitan jivanana tambile pambu pol unniye acham urugindran tannaitan ஜீவனலன் யான் பரமான்மாவென்று தேர்ந்ததனால் அவன் அஞ்சானாய் அவன் தன்னைத்தான் ஜீவனென தாம்பிலே பாம்பு போல் உன்னியே அச்சம் உருகின்றான் தன்னைத்தான் ஜீவனலன் யான் பரமான்மாவென்று பேர்ந்ததனால் அவன் அஞ்சானாய் அவன். The Acharya is coming to the verses on the ego taught by Bhagavan from verse number 23rd onwards. How the Jiva Bhava comes about was shown to us in the previous two verses, 25 and 26. The I know, the knower, I know that I am a banker. I know that I am a lawyer. I know that my friend is a doctor. I know that this is twilight. So the I know arises due to a mix-up of, due to a false association of the Sat-Chit nature of the Atma and the Vritti nature of the Buddhi. That the thought has consciousness is falsely associated by someone arising from the self which has no rising or setting. So Kanakammal says, literally the creation of Jiva is described there in verse number 25. Literally, Bhagavan describes how the Jiva is created. And that is continued in verse 26. Endrum vikaramiladanma buddhiyum endrum arivindriyade endralum ஒன்றிய ஜீவனே எல்லாம் தெரிவான் செய்வான் காண்பான் பாவத்தான் மாமோகிப்பார். the Atma has no vikara, has no change. It does not say, I do not know and I know. I did not do and I did. I saw and I did not see are not there in the Atma. And the Buddhi is not having light of its own. We all know in sleep, the Buddhi does not come to consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is not its nature. But then, there is someone who comes in between these two and says, I am the one who knows, who does, who sees. So the doership, the knowership, and the perception of seership is all attributed or taken credit of by an entity called Jiva. So 25 and 26 brought out the root problem identified by Bhagavan. Bhagavan says that Naan ezhunda pin ellam ezhum. Only after the Jiva Bhava arises, everything else arises. So the Acharya has also brought down the problem to the Jiva Bhava. And he is unraveling how that is the root problem. Tannaittan in the 27th verse, in the 25th and 26th verse, how the Jiva Bhava comes about or is misapprehended as the Jiva, where that was mentioned by the Acharya. Here, how that Jiva Bhava is the very root of all our miseries is described. The Upamana, the Uvamai or the example given is Tambile Pambupol. That means the problem is wholly brought to this particular act of considering ourselves to be a Jiva. It's like seeing the rope but superimposing the snake on it. What is there on the road is only a meandering kind of river like rope is there. It is curved. And seeing that, with probably you can add some wind and all that, creating some flutter in the fiber on sides of the rope, there is a fear that it is a snake. Now, the rope and snake, the key purpose of that is, if you see this, that is not there. If you see that, that is not this. That is, you can either be in the perception of snake or you can completely be in the perception of rope. Now, there is no chance of confusing as to whether this is with the support of action, with the support of knowledge, with the support of seeing or not. All those things, confusions are not there. It is very simple. If you see the Jiva, then you don't see the Atma where Vikara is not there. If you see the Vikara mill Atma, you don't have the Jiva Bhava. Tannaittan Jivanena Tambile Pampul. That we are a limited consciousness trapped inside this body-mind complex. We are that consciousness somehow caged within this conditioned existence. The moment you yield to that ignorance, then Achamurugindra, all kinds of fears start. All kinds of fears that the living in the Jiva Bhava is supposed to go with yoga and kshema. That means As soon as the Jiva Bhava arises, there is the Mamakara, in which certain things we call as good possessions, which are required within inverted commas, and the Jiva Bhava goes with that. That Mamakara is there. We falsely feel that those possessions give us security. Whereas the moment the Jiva Bhava goes, the fear of not having attained something, not having the yoga of attaining something, and the fear of losing what you have. We have a very high post. We have something put away for the rainy day today. Now, we have insurance and the insurance company is still afloat. All these we take. There is a joke going around in the Pattimandram that people who talk like this, they are obviously not your friends. That when someone says, I have put money away in insurance, then I am happy because of that. If somebody comes and says, see, the insurance companies themselves are going bankrupt these days, then the joke in the Pattimandrams is that that person is not your friend. He doesn't even want you to be happy with this particular thing. But it is not in that sense. A greater happiness is given to us by Bhagavan. A real happiness is given to us by Bhagavan. He is not merely taking away the possessions. He is giving us the real labha, the real happiness. Let me share with you. As usual, I had gone and met my mother and discussed these two verses. And as soon as she saw me, her mind went back 50 years and she was narrating how I was dressed up as Murugar. I don't know, I don't remember that. I remember the songs going, there was a kolatam and all that, but I don't remember the details. But she remembers the details, that it was very nicely decked up and she herself had practiced the song Kundrutoru Madum Shanmuga Enmel Konda Kobam Enna Shanmuga. That song she had practiced and she had received a good applause for having done the singing. I was doing nothing but standing in the center and some girls were going around in Kolatam, the stick dance that is there, and she remembered that. And just like the insurance business, I told her, see, if you remember that and you feel that that memory is giving you happiness or giving me happiness, then there is a whole lot of other memories which are not so liked by us. There are plenty. So I narrated to her one or two of those. See, as soon as you say that this memory, this particular memory is giving me happiness, I am a jiva and I am recalling one of the anubhavas. It could be, as Carl Sagan points out, it could be a memory stored up of the bread being baked in the early morning. And just the remembrance of that can give a very happy feeling. It could be anything, but the moment that memory is there, then all the negative memories which we don't like are also loaded up and it could come at any time. So I was telling Amma that the real happiness is not there in that thought. It is only that we superimpose on that thought. Therefore, along with that is superimposed the possibility of the fearful thoughts that have also been our experience in the past. So many things have happened which are not liked by us and they are stored up in the memory. If this particular memory is brought up for enjoyment, then they also queue up. Therefore, she immediately said, therefore we have to do, who am I, isn't it? Like that. But then the flow was there. She wanted to recall because tomorrow is her birthday. So she was going back the memory lane and she was recalling that, and we said that is that memory having the capacity to give us the happiness. That is possible only when we have the Jiva Bhava and like some of our memories and don't like some of our other memories. So what to do? What to do is Tannaitan Jivanalan. That the moment I become a Jiva, I become a worried mother. I become a worried employee. Possibility. Because the problems that line up along with the capabilities could bring happiness, but then the problems also line up, bringing up the possibility of sorrow. Therefore, Tannaitan Jivanalan, the who am I enquiry is to eliminate that ignorance that I am a limited consciousness trapped inside a body. To eliminate that ignorance, we have been given this sadhana of enquiry. In Ulladu Narpadu, we can recall Bhagavan says that Tanmai Undel Munnilai Padarkaigal Tamulavam Tanmayin Unmayai Tanaindu. For whom is this memory of my son having played some role? It is for me. When you do who am I, then I was telling Amma, when your persona, your individuality is offered to the source, there itself you see Sweta, her person who is attending to her, attending to Amma, as well as Nandu, your son, all of them you simultaneously see as that light which has no limits, light which is self-luminous. Even the I thought has this partial nature of self-luminosity because it doesn't need the support of any other thought to know its existence. This we have gone, and how many ever times you go through and register, it is one of the key teachings of Bhagavan, that the I thought is different from other thoughts because when I ask you, do you exist, you don't need the support of any other thoughts, however great it may be. Whatever deity may be in that thought, that is not required to reveal your existence to you. When I ask you, you know it. Did you require a memory? Did you require to check up any books to find that you exist? No. Did you need to ask somebody? No. Therefore, this I thought is of a different nature because it knows its own existence, though not clearly. So the only sadhana is to clear up the nature of your ever-present existence. What is the sadhana? Nam Jivanalan. Tannaitam Jivanalan. I am not this I trapped inside a body or mental identity. Tannaitam Jivanalan. Yan Paramanma Endru. I am the self-luminous self. I am the I. As Ganapati Muni says, Jagat Aham Para Spurati Me Trayam. Jagat Aham Para Spurati Me Trayam. The world, the I, the Jiva, and the Ishvara, all the three who were posited as three different entities, Jagat, Jiva, and Ishvara, posited as three different thoughts, three different entities, are shining together in me. All the three are shining together in me as I. In fact, that shining together in me is also to be transcended. Are they in me, or is there any outside to that? The very concepts of in me and outside of me are transcended in the self-luminous self. நான் ஜீவனலன் நான் பரமான்மா என்று தேர்ந்ததனால் ஆவன் அஞ்சானாய். That is advitiya sthiti. The swayam prakasha atma is advitiya vastu. Dvitiyam bhayam bhavati is commonly understood simple statement from Vedanta that whenever two fundamental entities are posited, then the space and time get divided. Where this is there, that is not there. Where that is there, this is not there. And space and time being intertwined, being interconnected, it is space, time together. Now, that space, time being one, both have to be crossed in the Advitiya Bhavana. The moment two are there, space and time together come up. We have seen in the discussion of how the sunlight travels and takes 8 minutes to come and reach here. Therefore, it is not only that there is distance, there is also time in that distance, that we can see the sun only as it was 8 minutes ago. So, as soon as distance is there, time is also there. As soon as there is a distance between the seer and the seen, time also comes in. Therefore, you can see only a thing as it was some moments ago. So, as they are in the past, you can never see a thing as it is now. You can only see the thing as it is now by seeing your own truth in the now. But that's another discussion. Probably down the line we'll be able to go through it again. We have gone through that. But then that is this verse. Tannaittan jeevanana tambile paambu pol. The moment you consider yourself a jiva, the I thought being trapped in a maze of sensory objects, the I thought trapped in a maze of thoughts, if you consider that, and the I thought that suddenly goes off to not knowing in deep sleep, if you consider yourself to be that jiva, one is subject to fear. Fear can be of loss of mamakara or loss of one's own self, that I am subject to birth and death. That fear is there. So the whole area of fear comes up with the jiva bhava. So what is the solution given in this verse? Tannaittan jeevanalan yan paramanma என்று யாவன் தேர்ந்ததனால் ஆவன் அஞ்சானாய். All fear is removed in the self-luminous self. That is verse 27. Verse 28. Just give me a moment. Verse 28, it talks of from where the source of illumination is, and so makes it clear to us that the instruments of perception cannot be having consciousness of their own. So this verse, the previous verse was how we get stuck in the jiva bhava, and to come out of it, we have to inquire who we are and come to the self-luminous self. In this verse, the intent of the Acharya is to make it clear to us what is the nature of the consciousness that is present in his eyes, ears, nose, in this world, in the mind, in the intellect, and in the ego, And what is the nature of consciousness? That is present in the self-luminous self, which is really having consciousness of its own, which is actually having borrowed consciousness. Obviously, that which is having borrowed consciousness cannot be Satya Vastu. It is merely having consciousness and existence because it is lit up by some other light. Like this room is lit up by the two tube lights. That light, how it reveals the chairs, the other objects, the Bhagavan's photo there, how it reveals, the reverse is not possible. That if I switch off the tube light, the chair or the almirah cannot reveal the tube light for me. That is the key upamana. As we had seen earlier, the whole work is sprinkled with these metaphors, which makes it easy for us to do sadhana. These metaphors make it easy, they make it connected with day-to-day living. The abstract Atma Vicharam or abstract Atma bodham is made very practical, and how it is applicable to our day-to-day living. The connection is brought about through this metaphor. The example taken here by the Acharya is Deepam Gadam. How the Deepa that is lit up, how it reveals the Gadam and the pots and the other things like that. Like the lamp lit up in a room, in those days maybe the oil lamp, how it lights up the other pots and objects in the room, like that the Atma Swarupa is the one which is lighting up the intellect, which is lighting up the manas, which is lighting up the prana, which is lighting up the indriyas, none of which can give light to the Atma itself. So let us see the words of Bhagavan. Oru porulam Anma. Oru porulam Anma odirkum madimun karuvigalai deebam kadadi oruva ஒளியில் அவற்றால் ஒருபோதும் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்க்கப்படாதென்றுண ஒரு பொருளாம் ஆன்மா ஒரு பொருளாம் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்க்கும் மதிமுன் கருவிகளை தீபம் கடாதி ஒருவர் ஒளியில் அவற்றால் ஒருபோதும் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்க்கப்படாதென்றுணர். Atma is the ever existing vastu, ulla porul. Simply put, that is God. For all our troubles, we having been brought up in the families here, so to say, that bhavana has also got to go. We are all used to understanding that the one power that is taking care of all the actions in this world. So therefore, we immediately, whenever in trouble at least, we immediately think of God. Kashtadalashte nenevanadaru ishtadi nadasiko arunachala is the Kannada translation of the verse in Tamil. Minjidil kenjidum konja arivaniyan vanjiyadarulene arunachala. That we immediately think of God. And who is God? God is the Ullapuru. If he is non-existent, if it is non-existent at some point, then whatever else we seek from it is going to be non-existent. So therefore, I am that I am, or the ever-existent nature, is alone given by Bhagavan as the nature of God. So, and how is that God's ever-present nature lit up? Unless you know it, Unless you know the existence of God, in an interview, Carl Jung, who says Bhagavan is the whitest spot in the white space of Indian monism, or something like that, he says, having studied Bhagavan, obviously taken help from Vedanta for his findings in psychology, he writes in that whole Vedantic space, the space of monism, Bhagavan Ramana is the whitest spot. In an interview, he says about this knowing and believing. So somebody asks him, the interviewer asks him, do you believe in God? And Carl Jung says, I don't have a need for belief because I know. I know the existence of the Supreme. Therefore, I don't need the support of a belief, he says in that interview. So, what is it to directly know? And what is that light which can help you know the Ulla Porul? Ulladala, Ulla Unarvu, Ullado. That is the question. Or Ulladunara, Unarvu Verinmayin, Ulladunarvahu Undipara. Can the Unarvu, can the knowing be something apart from the ever existing Vastu? These questions are approached by understanding that the eyes and the other indriyas, which reveal the world to us. So the world itself, Gita says, is of a dimension lower than the dimension of the indriyas. And the indriyas are a lower dimension than the breath. The breath is a lower dimension to mind, mind is a lower dimension to intellect, and intellect is a lower dimension to the jiva. And on inquiry, the jiva itself becomes non-existent along with the all the upadhis. Now, can those, from where do those upadhis get the light? For that, Bhagavan says, Madik oli tandu am madikul olirum. Earlier, he would have defined Madi as, in Upadesha Saram, he would have defined Madi as all the other thoughts arise only after the I thought. Therefore, this I thought itself is the Madi. The I thought itself is Madi. Therefore, Madikul Ulirum, when he says, it is the Paramatma shining within the I thought. So the I thought itself is lit up from the Paramatma, the self-luminous self, shining within. Of course, we will go as within. Parivam Ulam Uruganala Paranarnidum Guhayarndu Arivam Vidi Tiravai Nijam Arivai Adu Veliyam. We will begin our inquiry to still the eye, and when the eye is stilled, we will find the Paramatma shining as I. Now, is that Ul or Veli? Ul Veli Indri Swayam Prakasha Atma. Arivai Adu Veliyam. The Ul and Veli are both transcended in the Swayam Prakasha Atma. So, the Swayam Prakasha Atma is the Orupurul. Orupurulam Anma. There is no Dvidiyam there. It is Ekam. Ekam Aksharam Hridinirantaram Bhasate Swayam Likyate Katam. How to write it? Where writing involves the triad of the writer, the act of writing, and the written. When it is split up in that triad, how can the Eka Vastu, which is Akshara and Swayam Prakasha and Nirantara Bhasate, how can that be expressed in the written form? It has to be experienced directly by being that Swayam Prakasha Atma itself. Therefore, this verse says, Oru Porulam Anma. That Swayam Prakasha Anma is Ekam. Oru Porulam Anma Olirkum Madimun Karivigale. That is the one which lights up the Madi, the intellect, the mind, the brain, the breath, the Indriyas, and therefore the Jagat. The Surya's light is Jadam compared to Indriya. Bhagavan says the Surya Prakasha, which is given so much importance by scientists, is inert compared to the consciousness. We have seen that if someone goes to sleep in the afternoon sun under the shade of a tree, the sun might as well not be there. Because the consciousness does not rise and use the Indriyas, the sun existing is as good as non-existing. So that is the dimension, that the inner dimensions are far greater than the outer dimensions. The outer dimensions are lit up by the inner light of the self. Therefore, Oru Porulam Anma Olirkum Madimun Karivigale. Deepam Kadadi Poruva. How the Deepa lights up the objects in a room. Poruva is for example. For example, how the light in a room lights up the other objects, like that the Swayam Prakasha Atma lights up the intellect, the mind, the breath, the Indriyas, and so on. Then comes the key point. ஒளியில் அவற்றால் ஒருபோதும் ஆன்மா ஒளிர்க்கப்படாதென்றுணர். They are not having light of consciousness of their own. The Indriyas, the Prana, the Manas, the Buddhi, and the Ahankara all go off into ignorance in the deep sleep state. And they again get in deep sleep, Atma is present, but none of these instruments, ego, intellect, mind, breath, and Indriyas, none of them have consciousness in deep sleep. Therefore, none of them are having the light of consciousness of their own. Therefore, none of them can reveal the God to us. None of them can reveal the Atma Swarupa to us. So they have to be dropped. The Indriya Pratyaksha Loka, Indriya, Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankara have all to be dropped deliberately by the consciousness. And as Bhagavan says, if these are not I, if I am not even the ignorance of the not knowing I, then who am I? Asks Sivaprakasham Pillai. You are that light of consciousness. You are that arivu. You are that consciousness which has deliberately dropped all these as not I, and is self-luminous as the Satchit Ananda. Your Swarupa is that of Satchit Ananda or Sat Swarupa or Satchit, in whichever way, because they are all one, they are all not two or three. It is only the Swayam Prakasha Atma Swarupa. The key point here is, by speaking Likyate Katam, how to see it with the eyes, how to hear it. When somebody would make 20-25 dishes and bring to Bhagavan, he would appreciate how much trouble you have taken and all this. Then he will mix it up and say, for us here, it is all one taste. It is not to put her down. It is to give the importance of how difficult it is to remember the Atma Swarupa. That if you make 40 items, you go to a buffet and you have a spread of North Indian, South Indian, and all those things, probably many international foods also these days, then you feel that those multiplicities are bringing you happiness. How can they? They don't have consciousness of their own. Only if we say that there is happiness, in that or memory of that, there is happiness. Therefore, one has to deliberately understand that that foodstuff there, or the eyes, or the tongue, or the memory of it, or the analysis of good and bad with the intellect, or even the raising of the eye, is not going to reveal to us the light of the Swayam Prakasha Atma. So, in understanding this, the consciousness has to let them go as inert. The memory you had of your son somewhere and feeling that is a joy, whereas you are unnecessarily limiting yourself and you are feeling that thought is giving you happiness, whereas you are the Swayam Prakasha Atma, which does not need any of these supports, which cannot be lit by any of these instruments. Those are the two verses which give us so much of jnana as to which direction to go. As to we have two more verses in this section, 29 and 30. So hopefully we'll take it up in the coming week. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Let us sit in Atma Ucharam till 8 o'clock when we will listen to Ka. Julji, you'll be able to give us the timing. Got it. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana, sir. Unmute. I had two devices on. So it's echoing. Now it should be okay. Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana. Shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana. In this satsang, we are meditating on the verses of Anma bodham. And today, we had two very beautiful verses through which Nandakumar ji has taken us. The first verse highlights the very famous example which is given of the snake and the rope. And this is very often this was beautifully described to us by Subraya Sharma. He would describe it in a very graphic manner, and he would say, there was this wedding, and suddenly somebody said, oh, there is a snake in the corner of that room, and what to do? It's a wedding, we have to do something. Call the snake charmer, call the forest officials. And the snake charmer would be brought, and the snake charmer would see there was no snake there, but he would say, I need to be paid so much of money to get rid of the snake. Somebody would say, beat the snake. Somebody would say, burn the snake. And all kinds of solutions would come. And the snake charmer would pretend there is a snake over there. And he would charge the heavens for getting rid of that snake. And all that is non existent totally. It is not there at all. The snake is not there at all. And I also recalled Swami Brahmananda while saying, he would say, people come and say, Swamiji, this problem is there, that problem is there. What to do? What to do about this? What to do about that? He would say, but our scriptures don't countenance this at all. They do not even accept the existence of an independent entity. Apart from the self, there is nothing existing. So where is the question? That is how Subraya Sharma ji also would describe it very graphically in a comic manner almost. Our engagement with the illusion. Chandrasekhar Bharati Mahaswami would put it a little differently. He would say, it's all very well if you think there is a snake in a rope, because the rope will not bite in any case, the rope will not harm you, it has no poison. But if you think that a snake is a rope, it's a problem. If you think that your illusion will not hurt you in any way, that is a problem. So recognize the danger of the illusion. Recognize that this is not only recognize that this is an illusion, but recognize it is dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Because it's causing the sense of danger to arise in us. That's what the verse says. It's causing fear to arise in us. It is the root cause of fear. This illusion is the root cause of fear. The division is the root cause of fear. And we see in an earlier verse, while explaining an earlier verse also, Nandakumar ji was telling us that if there is duality, there is fear. If there is duality, there is anxiety. If there is duality, there is sorrow. Because why fear? Because there is something outside of us that may hurt us in some way. So there is always fear. Or if it is dear to us, that which is apart from us, that which we see to be apart from us, if it is dear to us, then there is fear of losing it. Either there is fear of being hurt by it in some way, or there is fear of losing it. So there is always fear. Dvitiya means fear. The second object means fear. Something apart from me, division means fear. And in this second verse, we are told that there is nothing apart from the self. That alone is Eka Vastu. Ekamaksharam was brought home to us today. Even in Appadam song, Bhagavan says, Seppadu sonna or mozhiyinpadi appadam ittu paru. There's only one instruction, one word. There's only one awareness. That unified awareness. We think, as again Nandakumarji said, when there is variety, we think the variety can bring joy. When the white peacock came to Sri Ramanashramam, it was gifted by the Maharani of Baroda. And many people told Bhagavan, the other peacocks are very beautiful. They have so many colors. But this doesn't have any colors, it's just white. And Bhagavan said, there is a beauty to this. This is Shuddha Sattva, he said. That white is Shuddha Sattva. He said, in fact, all the peacocks, when they are born, they don't have variegated colors in their feathers. As they grow, there are variegated colors. So many differences come up. As the mind grows, the differences come up. So there is just this one light, and the beauty of it is everything is lit by that consciousness. So, what is the light of the sun? It is the light of that consciousness. What is the light of the indriyas? It is the light of that consciousness. What is the light of the manas, the mind? It is the light of that consciousness. So nothing is actually denied. Nothing is actually negated. If we are only in the sensory world, when the sensory world is absent, we would be at a total loss. If there is nothing apart from the sensory experience, then when sensory experience is lost to us, we are totally gone. We would have become zero. If there is nothing apart from mental experience, in deep sleep we should become zero. But that's not the case. And that's the beauty. That's the grace as well. That no matter what the external circumstance, no matter what the sensory position, no matter what the emotional position in our lives, the Atma Tattva it is not at all changed because of that. It is not touched because of that. And it includes everything. It makes everything possible. In our play, Paripurna Ramana, we have a scene where there is a character who depicts Bhagwan's self-enquiry, and there is a protagonist who is wondering about the steps of self-enquiry. So this character, who is called I, that character asks the protagonist, says, can you see the objects here in this room? Can you see all these objects? And what do you see? And she describes the different objects in the room. And then he says, supposing all these objects are taken away. When all these objects are taken away, what happens? Then she says, there is now nothing to see. And then he asks, what about the light? Don't you see the light? In an empty room, is the light not there? When the objects were there, was the light not there? And she says, yes, I see the light. But I don't mention the light. I just take it for granted. The light is always there. But he says, see, each and every object is only known because of the light. But you don't see the light. You see the object. This is what happens in our experience as well. That is what this verse points out too. When we see sensory experiences, we see only the sensory experiences. We don't see the consciousness which makes us see. When we see our thoughts, when we experience our emotions, we are completely caught up in the emotions. We are in the anger, we are in the sorrow, we are in the joy. We are in the wonderment, or we are in what we are seeing, or there is this thing to be seen, this movie to be seen, this dish to be tasted, this song to be heard. By how is this happening? We forget that consciousness by which and in which everything is happening. But what Bhagavan in his infinite grace is doing is helping us to turn the attention back to that consciousness. In order to do so, we have to understand, or we have to negate this process of saying something is an illusion, something is a negation. The senses are jada, the buddhi is jada, the manas is jada. Why do we say it? In actual fact, when there is nothing apart from consciousness, there is nothing that is jada. But in order to wean ourselves from the habit of thinking these are independent, these are independently conscious, in order to wean ourselves from the significance that we give to the sensory experiences, the significance that we give to the mental experiences, to the intellectual experiences, we are told that all these are jada. Apart from the self, they have no light of their own. But once we understand the basis, once we experience the consciousness, then that alone is, and that alone is everything. Bhagavan says in Ekarna Panchakam, everything exists in the self. And in his own experience also, which he experienced in July 1896, he says that everything happened in the self. The body also was known to be in the self. Earlier, Tannul Tanuvirukka Thanachada. He says, when the body is within this self, one thinks, the ignorant one thinks, the self is within the body. But that is also grace. To seek the self, Bhagavan converts every disadvantage into an advantage for us. It's okay, you think the self is within you. Okay, then seek that source within you. Seek that consciousness within you. And Sadhu Om Swami says, once you find it here, then you will know that it is everywhere, that it is all pervading. There's nothing apart from it. So it's a great grace of Bhagavan that reminds us again and again not to get carried away by something which is actually like, which is denying us the entirety of that bliss. So we need to be reminded, because we seem to be experiencing something in this world, we seem to be tasting something, we seem to be getting some little joy, and or we seem to be stuck in some problem in this world. So Bhagavan is saying, don't pay attention to both. Get back to the source. Get back to the source, because that alone is nothing else is there. Not that nothing else matters. Nothing else is there at all. Nothing else is there at all. Only this is. When we recognize that more and more and more, when we turn to that with the support of Bhagavan's words, then gradually, Paiya un veedu kaattinai, Bhagavan says in Aksharamanamale, gradually that grace erodes all our anxieties, all our fears, all our distractions, and the glow of the self, the radiance of the self, it fills our lives more and more by that immense grace. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramanaka.
Namo
Namo Ramana to all.
Namo.
Thank you for joining.